Is set and several issues to talk about within the week. The Parliament of the Republic of Uganda again passed the National Social Security Fund Bill. It's an amendment, and this also comes with a lot of optimism that probably this time the head of state will assent to the bill and savers will be able to access their savings mid-term. And again, that's another issue we'll give time in this discussion this morning. But again, we can also talk about the doctors' strike. It was announced on Sunday evening, and for the whole of this week, doctors on sit-down strike. If you go to health facilities, you only find those low-ranking health providers, and that has caused disruptions in service delivery, especially for those who are seeking specialized treatment in public hospitals. Those are the two issues we'll handle this morning. But again, many other issues happened. But before we go there, let me introduce my panel this morning. Honorable Silas Algon is a member of Parliament for Kumi Municipality. He is in the studios. Welcome to the program, The Dialogue, this morning, Honorable.
Thank you, and good morning, all the viewers.
I'm happy to be here.
Good. And I also have the honor to introduce Mr. Patrick Katabazi. Patrick Katabazi is a lawyer, an economist, and a public policy specialist. He has a passion in social protection. Welcome to the program, Mr. Katabazi.
Thank you, and good morning, our listeners and viewers.
Good. We kick off the show, and I also must inform you that we'll be joined by a member of the Uganda Medical Association, one of those leading bodies that handle matters of health providers in this country, and we'll be talking about that particular issue. But before we go there, let's first look at the NSS bill amendment that was passed this week. Like I said, it now comes with a lot of optimism that probably the urge in the savers to access, to have mid-term access to their funds, to their savings, will be achieved this time after the president, the last time it was passed, the president did not assent to the bill, citing few issues that we hope have been handled this time. I don't know, between you two, I am constrained, but let me start with Honorable Silas. You were in the 11th Parliament.
10th.
In the 10th Parliament. Now you have been part of this enactment of this bill again. Can you say now that this time round you are very, very hopeful and confident that all those issues that led to this bill going back and forth have been handled?
I want to believe so. And our viewers must be so hopeful, more so the beneficiaries, because I know even right in my constituency, there are many people who have been approaching me and asking for the status of this bill. How far have you gone? And they have been feeling the pain because the bill had not been able to be assented to by the president. But now that the Parliament has adequately handled this bill, I want to believe this time around things are going to be okay. And they are going to get the money. Please put a smile on your face.
Really?
Yeah.
And it's just one comment. Let me also cross to Patrick. The same question. Are you really confident that this time around it is a done deal?
Yes, I unfortunately, upon my view about the NSSF amendment, particularly the midterm access, have been rather different from most of the popular views that have been expressed. But I know that Parliament passed the bill with an amendment to allow people to access their midterm access upon saving, I'm told, 10 years continuously and having 45 years of age. So those, if the bill is assented to, and the regulations thereof are made, then people will access this money. But I don't want us to promise our viewers right now, because we might end up making them line up at NSS offices, wherever they are across the country, to get their money. There is still some work to be done. Number one, the president must first of all assent to the bill. That's the procedure. Having assented to the bill, our members of parliament subjected that particular clause to regulations to determine the methodology and many other things that could not be put into the law. And they tagged that process to a time period of 60 days. So I think it will be now until after 60 days that we shall come here again and start asking whether the process is still on track or not. But there should be some optimism for those who think that they need this 20% very urgently for one reason or the other. I hope you'll give me an opportunity to later on to tell you why I was not in support of this direction. Of midterm access. At 45.
All right. Silas.
Yes.
Honorable Silas, Patrick talked about the regulations. That's another process probably that we have to wait for. I remember while passing that bill, there were calls that probably the regulations should first come to Parliament, and then the Parliament looks at, if you were following those proceedings, you must have seen it. And looking at how the first amendment was handled, the president pointing out several issues in the bill, several provisions of the bill, how the fund will be managed, whether it should be the Ministry of Labour, Gender and Social Development or the Ministry of Finance, and also the issue of the age, that probably the issue of PWDs, people with disabilities, accessing all that big percentage of the funds. Are you now confident that the president is convinced and will assent to the bill?
Thank you. You see, first of all, unlike in the situation of the tennis parliament, where we passed this bill and sent it to the president for his assent, and we didn't have the opportunity to look at what his view would be, we didn't get his input. In this situation, we've been able to get his mind. So that is why I'm quite confident that this time around, it's most likely that he will pass it, he will assent to it. I say so because the areas of disagreement, like you've already noted, highlighted, already came to the knowledge of Parliament. So unusually, when a bill is returned by the president, he returns it with the highlights of the areas of what? That on this we don't agree, on this we don't agree. And our rules bind us to concentrate on only the areas of dissent. Yes, this time around, because of the lapse of the 10th Parliament, there was a ruling by the Speaker, and he said we've got to go back to ground zero. But that one, I want to believe, did not rub away the thoughts of the president. So even the Committee on Gender, which was handling this, had it in mind that yes, much as we are like starting this thing afresh, the president's concerns were A, B, C, and D. On issues of age, on issues of maybe people with disabilities, if there are issues of housing of the bill, who is going to manage, the role of Minister of Finance, the role of Minister of Gender, And I think most of these things have been ironed out. Because now I see in this bill, they are saying now, Minister of Gender, you'll be managing issues of social security. Whereas the Minister of Finance will handle issues of finances, financial nature, which I believe brings us to a common journey. So there is a likelihood that the President this time around will assent to this bill. Of course, I know that we shall have to wait a little longer because the minister in question has been granted powers to make regulations. This is not the role which Parliament usually does. It's a delegated responsibility to the minister relevant to always help us to have regulations to operationalize this law. And I think that is what will make us to wait longer. It may take 2 to maybe more months, but let people have the hope. Okay. And for me, I'm a prayer warrior. I need my voters to benefit from this. I'm praying for them from today.
Praying for them.
Yes.
Okay. Now, Patrick, I think the same issue, the areas of dissent where the president had issues, do you think they have been well addressed this time?
Like Honorable Cyrus has mentioned, I think this time around there seems to have been some kind of convergence. And I know the President has been following up on this bill very closely, and I have seen in the place where he has had occasions to dialogue with leaders of trade unions, and in fact at some point members of Parliament on the Committee of Gender, Labour and Social Development with responsible ministers and technical staff. And I think the position, for example, on the dual management of NSSF, supervisory role by Minister of Gender, Labour and Social Development, and the Minister of Finance are taking charge of areas of the finance and investment nature, is a compromise position. And that came out of the press release that was given out after that meeting of with different stakeholders with the President. So I think that was one of the strongest areas of contention on top of the midterm access. I think the rest of other things were not as serious as those ones. Very important, but not as serious, because the supervisor determines so much on the outcome of how an institution runs. But also one of our threats, one of our fears on the issue of the midterm access was that NSSF ordinarily does not keep money idle. It invests it and only allows some balance, which is in form of projected expenditure on people who are retiring in a given year, on operational expenses and the like. So our fear was that if you wake up and knock on the door and say we need 3 trillion, that certainly would occasion some harm on the growth, on the finances of the institution or the investment portfolio of the institution. Those are some of the concerns. So with NSSF coming out quite a number of times saying that if the law is passed in the current form, they would be ready to take actions on day one, I think that is also comforting. And if that was the fear that also is espoused by the President, then I think we have got an answer from NSSF that they are ready to take action once the law is passed and assented.
Well, but again, I'll take you back to the fear on the side of the implementers, especially the NSSF board and the chairman, Mr. Richard Byarugaba. You remember when he was in the news for statements like, we don't have that money, we may not be able to get that money, we invested it somewhere. If then all of a sudden he said, no, we have the money, if you pass the bill, then we'll provide that money. I don't know if now, if it speaks to anything after it has been passed now? Do you think it will affect?
No, of course. I think one of my biggest procrastinations I have had with the leadership at NSF is that they have also not been very consistent on messaging. There's sometimes in camera they say there's no money, in public they say there's money. I understand the pressure they have been subjected to, because I mean they have been projected as hiding something, they have been projected as not having the money anyway. But there's a difference between having the money and having the money to pay now.
Oh yeah.
Yes, some people are rich but they don't have any money standing on their bank accounts. So their money is already spread in the wealth that they have. So such is likely to be the case with the NSSF, because if a member of NSSF expects a return on his contribution every year in the form of a percentage, which has been on average 10% per year, what would be the basis of keeping money idle? Yet there are very many investment options. So if you wake up and say we need 20% of the total contributions now, for a body that we expect to be investing this so that members can get a higher return, that would be too much to ask. But again, I wish to say that ever since this debate started, it's been some time. And if NSSF has been reading the mood already, they should be internally moving towards a direction of making more money available than they were making it available previously. Because previously they had to make sure that they have money for operational expenses, including salaries and operation funds for the staff of NSSF. Then they would also make sure that they have good projections for people who are retiring, who are going to get their money. Then they would also make a projection on the money that they needed to invest. So I would imagine that since this debate started, and looking at the wave the 20% access has taken, it is likely that the management has also read the mood, and this year maybe they did not invest possibly as much, and as such they have some money that is available. But also wanted to say again that people should also understand that NSSF has been telling us that on average you have people who, on average, majority of the members of NSSF have less than 25 million standing to their
account.
Yes, to their benefit on their account. You get? So you have about 20% who have possibly more than 100 million. So the question of the day is going to be, which category is likely to line up for this money? And my gut feeling tells me that people who have a lot of money standing to their credit at NSSF are likely not to come for the 20%. Because when you do so, and especially those who have been doing voluntary contributions, because, I mean, if you do so now, it then downgrades your potential benefit at the end of the term. Because now, imagine, if you have 100 million at NSSF right now, 12% that was awarded by the minister would translate to about 12 million. You know? So now, if you chopped off, if your aim is to grow your money, so that by the time you retire, you get much more that can actually help you achieve the objective for which you're making a contribution. Then if you withdraw the 20%, then you're taking a step backwards. And I think, and I want to call upon Ugandans that, and tell them that for those who may not have adverse economic challenges, you're better off keeping the money at the NSSF, because the original intention of the NSSF as it is was to safeguard people against challenges that come with old age or disability. So now Ugandans are living much longer than they used to. In 1986, I know some people don't want to hear that history, a bit of it. But you have our life expectancy below 37 years. Right now, as I speak, our average life expectancy is 64 years. But remember, you qualify to get your contributions or your benefits from NSSF
At 45. Okay.
At 55.
As it stands.
At 55. That's now the retirement cap. At 55. And the research coming from NSSF is telling us that within 6 months, when people have accessed their benefits, 90% of them have grown it up. They're at 0. So meaning that even if you are to die at 64, you have an additional 9 years
to utilize your savings.
To suffer. I mean, if you are grown up.
Or if you grow up.
If you have already eaten all that. Remember? So now, as we get used to growing old, like it is happening in this country, we should be focusing on long-term investment interventions that can come to our aid when we can no longer work. Remember, when you are old, you are not bankable. When you go to the bank, they can't give you a loan. They first ask you your age, because they imagine that you can die anytime.
You can die before you pay back.
Even insurance.
You cannot be insured. Right? Already, on all the adverts that you see in Uganda's papers, they even tell you that you must not be
above
of a certain age. So you are not bankable, you are not insurable, you are not employable. And the little resource that would come to your rescue, you have eaten it at 45.
Oh.
So that's an argument that I have had against
midterm access.
Midterm access. And instead actually saying that government, just like any other, what other government elsewhere are doing, government has had capacity or has capacity, if we do not know, to solve short-term emergency challenges like the ones that have been associated by COVID. Why do I say so? I know when we said it in the beginning, people said, no, you are overestimating the work of government. But where did they get the neighbor and your money? They got it. So if for me the only reason to access my NSSF at 45 is that I've been battered by COVID, and then I must get the NSSF, I am simply absorbing government and saying that all the inadequacies of government, I should take them on as an individual personally. Me, I think the correct position would have been government to come to the aid of all those people, vulnerable people who have been affected by this, so that we protect the little mechanism that is available that can make somebody get some money when they are not insurable, when they are not employable, when they are not bankable.
Okay, now that I think that we are actually bringing this discussion at the end of the whole process. That's the irony. But now, I don't know if I may ask Honorable Silas, did you at one point pick such a views and consider them in enacting this law?
Yeah, definitely. You know, we live with the people, and the people who are affected by all these decisions. We play a highly representative role, and before you say anything in the house, it's very important that you first listen to your people. And you know, what Patrick brings up is very serious. Addressing the concerns of vulnerability. There are many people who are challenged in life, but the question here is, government has not yet instituted very strong mechanisms to address the various vulnerabilities. Because, for instance, you see how COVID just sprang in and it found us naked nearly. We're not able to patch this up, patch that up quickly. And you'll find that for him, he has a very good argument that at your old age, you must be thinking of something that you'll be consuming without you necessarily working. The money will be working for you, or it has already worked for you. But if government had a strong mechanisms of addressing vulnerabilities,
social protection,
social protection, protecting those who have lost their employment, those who are aged, those who are sick, unemployed. Let me tell you, the best way to go will be that one of saving fully, and you access that 12% given by the minister, because that will be the best, really. But you imagine a situation where you are down there, you don't have insurance, you are sick, you don't have a source of livelihood at all, because the business has been closed down under lockdown, everything has a collapse. Those are some of the ideas we had in our mind as we are handling this debate. I know of one of my constituents who was a driver somewhere. He kept on asking me, when are you people passing this bill? And I felt every time I was seated there on his behalf as one person, first of all, because every other 2 weeks he would ask me when. So I realized, yes, he was in an adverse situation where he needed a remedy as quickly as possible. So I can tell you, the debate on NSSF has majorly been shaped, personally, or as me, by the COVID situation.
Okay.
Because you look at people and then you realize they needed something to help them come out of this hole. It was a big ditch. And I can tell you, for me, I would even sometimes think maybe it was even better for government to accept that it will release over 50% of this money to the people, because it will help us to jumpstart the economy.
But Patrick talked about how we managed to get the Nabanja money in that time of crisis, in that time of need. I think he was proposing that probably we could handle the issue of COVID effects the way we handled it with the Nabanja. We could find funds somewhere, then provide relief to those distressed, and not now exposing such a very important saving investment to now these urges from the population.
Yes, which would be a very good idea. But I can tell you, I'm in that House of Parliament. And you'll realize that you hardly reach 2 weeks without a proposal for a loan coming to the table.
From government?
We are seriously borrowing. Every minute, every second, we are borrowing.
Even this week you passed some.
Even this week. So borrowing. So to the extent that members of parliament even started naming some ministers of borrowing. You can imagine that kind of thing. So I do not remember very well the source that we used to get this money that we gave for the Nabanja money. It was around 55 billion. I do not remember the source. But if I'm not, maybe this money was also what? Borrowed. So there's a lot of money which has been borrowed into our economy. And the economy is bleeding. And in terms of interest that we pay out.
And we have a fund that has a lot of money. It is there.
Yes, this money here, first of all, people have been driven away from their livelihood, from their businesses. Everything has been switched off. You try to run to a bank, the bank is also saying that, first of all, the private school teachers have not paid us. The owners of private institutions took money from us, they have not paid us. Nobody wants to hear. The banks are also fearing to even lend now, because they are wondering, if we lend it to you, how sure are we the money will come back? The risk levels have jumped up. So that confusion has been able to shape this debate.
Okay.
How we handle this bill. Should we allow people to access their money? Should we try to secure them so that they get the money at the end? But also you ask the question, whom would you love to see? The man surviving those days, or the one who is about to die now and you save him now? Because if you saved somebody because he's about to die now, then he has a chance of living up to the other age. So that has shaped the debate. But overall, Uganda as a country needs to institute a very strong mechanism of managing these vulnerabilities. Social security is still a big gap in the country. Patrick and I always try to speak to issues of, for instance, social assistance grant for the elderly. What about the rest of the people? What about the people who are unemployed? What about the people who are sick? Do we have social insurance? This is health insurance, which is universal for everybody. Those are the issues.
Okay.
So this debate was largely, in my opinion, shaped by the current atmosphere, where people are lacking, people are sleeping hungry, people cannot afford anything. Remember, in January they are promising to open schools, and the schools are very hungry. They are thirsty for money, and they are likely to ask for 100%. And a lot of money, not just a little money. And you might have paid.
Patrick, I don't know now what we can do. Because, you see, two issues. One, like Honorable Salah said, now we will have people who will be running to NSSF, possibly, if the law, gets a nod from the president, running to withdraw money and pay school fees. I don't know if in that sense it serves its purpose. I don't know, but I think that was you. And again, Patrick, you seem to have an alternative, like you say that if there was that there could be an alternative for this, we shouldn't be going for this. Are you saying that probably our politicians were pushed to pass these provisions of this bill, not good as it may be, because even the Speaker of Parliament, after passing the bill, he said, I have been receiving calls. I've been receiving calls from everywhere, but I'm happy we have made it. Do you think there was that politicians passed it just because of the pressure and they knew they were aware of your view? They were well aware.
Yes. So there was pressure. There was blackmail. There was manipulation. Honorable has already told you that the calls that he was receiving, that every time he sat in the house considering that bill, he was remembering. So that's pressure. That's an example of pressure. But also know that the Honorable Chagurani and Honorable Wesiji tried to paint a picture that actually, even when they were talking about the money and the NSF was putting a response, that money wasn't even there. But these guys have already eaten the what? These guys have already eaten the money. So that puts you people who are supporting it on the defensive to demonstrate that actually, by the way,
so that is blackmail.
Possible. Yes, it is
some form of blackmail.
That you can come and we have the money. So when Richard Biarogaba would say, Richard Biarogaba would say that we don't have money to pay, he would be right and wrong at the same time. He would be technically right that there is no money, but he would be wrong because people always save contributions. So that put NSSF and people supporting that cause, like me, on the defensive. Somebody will call and said, okay, but now for you are not in support of this, but are you part of the sharing you have already eaten? Because on the fund they withdraw money, carry it in sacks every day. So there was a mixture of blackmail at another level, and which I think was not good. Then, of course, once the leaders of the trade unions jumped in, see, Uganda were building a culture of giving. You have to be seen that you are delivering something.
Isn't that politics? That is politics.
Yes,
I think.
You have to, so the trade unionists think that they must show the workers that they have snatched.
They are delivering
something, and because NSSF has had in the past been riddled with scandals, there are some people who think that getting my 20% today is better than getting 100% in 10 years, because it might not even be there in the first place. Because 100% of zero is what? So if they can assure us that the 20% is available and you can grab it, people are willing to do it. Because in any case, they are not sure of what will happen
in the future.
Yes, because there has been an issue of trust with our NSSF. And then, of course, some people have jumped on it and mixed it with this debate. Now, when the issue of midterm access was being constructed, COVID had not yet hit.
Yeah, the bill is
but the way it was being framed, I think we are learning more from what was happening in Ghana. Ghana also have this similar kind of arrangement, but they tagged midterm access as a product for voluntary contributions. So they will say, if you are saving under the mandatory, normal rules apply. But if in addition you're getting into the basket something, it should be very flexible for you at any stage to come and pick it out, to transform it into an education benefit. You talked about school fees, transform it into a health insurance, you know, so that you're using the platform, the mighty platform offered by a big fund such as NSSF, to have other low-cost services that otherwise would be very difficult to deliver by any other private sector. So that was like the thinking, and I thought that was a very, very progressive direction. But as we were into that debate, talking about the benefits and whatever, COVID hit. And when it did, and some people said, oh, what a good day.
We have money somewhere.
Yes, there's money, and people are talking about midterm access. It shouldn't be doing the other thing. It should be money now and not tomorrow. And of course, people jumped in left, right, and center, and the law has been passed the way it has been. But I also want to caution the public. When the politicians, like my colleague, are saying, they paint the picture that they are delivering the whole Uganda.
Yes.
They say people are suffering. Yes, people are suffering, and I'm one of those that have been affected by COVID in one or the other. Members of parliament have been adversely affected by COVID, especially those who were. I mean, it could also actually justify why 75% of the members of parliament lost elections.
Yeah.
Because COVID has created so many needs and challenges at the community level, and all eyes are where? On a member, by the only member of parliament, not a chairman LC5, not a councillor, not a member, not even government, member of what?
Of parliament.
Because for them they are used to promising things. So even when this came, people thought. So you can imagine the kind of pressure that they are on. So delivering something small, it's really a very good achievement for them. But the bigger picture is, should every person in the village go and camp at NSF to get the money? People should be told the truth. That you have about 2 million people who are members of NSSF, and that less than 800,000 are the ones who are active savers. So whereas that might sound as a good achievement to deliver money to the people, you're still talking about less than 0.5% of the people who are likely to be touched by this intervention. And like my colleague Cyrus says, Cyrus is my boss of the Uganda Parliamentary Forum on Social Protection, and we have discussed on a number of occasions the issue of addressing 3, if not 4 things that are affecting the incomes of Ugandans. Number 1 is education. You realize that every time schools are opening, from the policeman on the road,
Yes.
to every person, people are crying, school fees. Every message you get, school fees. Every person you talk to, school fees. When a policeman gets you on the road, school fees.
So corruption levels also go high at that time.
At that time, because people are extremely aggressive. So the question of the day, if there was a viable intervention in that direction, how much would it have saved a common person in terms of income? The other issue that I see that is second to that is health. Almost every week I get a notification for joining a group because they are fundraising
for someone.
You know, immediately when you get a job in Kampala or in any urban center, the expectation is that whoever falls sick in your family and greater community is that you send the money. But remember, we have free medical in the public. So what is the problem? Where is the missing link? And we are saying health insurance.
The bill
would be health insurance, yes. A national health insurance scheme could be very helpful to this. So we are solving 2 problems. And the third problem is housing. You realize that in Uganda right now, most people take loans to buy land to build a house. And if you're a man in your circles, the key topic is, have you built? That's the jazz that is there. If you get elected as a member of parliament, the question of the day is that does he have a house that befits
a home?
When we come.
A home. So that when we come. But we have government that is largely absent
If those three are
in
addressed,
the housing sector. In other countries, every year, government makes a commitment on how many housing units they are going to make available
every year.
to the population. Some could be on cheap.
I actually at one time wondered what the Ministry of Housing and actually I don't know. It's you people who assess and its performance and deliverables. I don't know.
Yeah. So what happens is that so ours is not actively involved. Ours is more or less like the indirect policy direction and everything. But in other countries, every budget year, government makes a commitment on the number of units it is going to deliver to the market.
And it will deliver.
And to deliver them. Some are actually free to people who are extremely vulnerable. Some are for low cost.
Mortgage.
Here in Uganda, if they tell you the low cost house, a low cost house that NSF is constructing, low cost, is about 600 million Uganda shillings.
It's very expensive.
That's low cost.
That's the low cost.
Which I can't afford even me as a member of
Which
parliament.
a member of parliament who are among the most highly paid people cannot afford. So it tells you that as long as we do not address those three things, those key services,
Okay.
we may never have enough income that can better our lives, because those are the key things that take away
Okay.
all the little money that we have. Now imagine, before we conclude this, how our life would have been if all those costs were controlled. Remember, in other countries it could even be the reason why for them they're in a middle income status, and we are not. Because remember, for us we are competing globally, but for them they have these advantages and we don't have. So imagine the amount of money that you pay under those items that I've talked about if it was left for you as disposable income. Imagine the creativity that you would have, the innovation that you would have, the businesses that you would set
It's
up.
really important. Patrick, in just 1 minute, if you look at the urge in the public, politicians receiving calls from every direction, asking them to pass this bill, and now it has passed. Good enough, it has passed. And don't you think that will bring savers in droves, like you said, to withdraw the fund and possibly deplete the fund? And again, if that is true, won't it affect its implementation? Like the president may be taking long to assent to the bill. Well, there is a period within which he must. But again, won't it again take us back, if that is real, that there are fears that the fund may be depleted with this pressure? I don't know how we look at that.
I can tell you with confidence that the president is not going to assent to this bill tomorrow. It will take time.
It will take time.
I can also tell you with confidence that unless the Minister of Finance ascertains the readiness of the NSSF to deliver this money, no regulations will be signed. And
Or the regulations may be very tough, probably, because I think that is why Parliament...
The law, because a regulation is not supposed to override the law.
Oh.
So the law has already stated the principle. Now, the regulations are supposed to now detail the process. Like if you want to make a claim, where do you go? Because remember, this is a new thing that is happening. So if you want to make a claim, where do you lodge?
But no, Patrick, I'm thinking of a regulation that may come that would limit. Well, you may be allowed to access 20%. You may have saved for 10 years, and you may have attained the 45 at the age of 45. But the regulation extends the time of access. And
what I know is that the regulation can actually the regulation can come into place and possibly makes the process a little bit longer.
Yes, exactly.
So you find that maybe, and we are being just devil's advocates here in this matter. It's not. We are not saying with certainty that that's what is going to happen, but a regulation can bring in technicalities that make accessibility a little bit challenging.
Patrick, I have to go for a break. The program is The Dialogue. My name is Timapolo. We have Patrick Katabazi. He's an economist and public policy specialist, and he is the ED and founder for budget Center for Budget and Tax Policy. And we have Honorable Silas Agon. He is the Member of Parliament for Kumi Municipality in the 11th Parliament. We will be going for a break, and when we return, we will conclude on this issue and go straight to the doctors' strike and look at whether it's also a done deal or not. Let's go for a break and return shortly.
Soul Television, Femunyo.
Welcome from the break. The program is The Dialogue. My name is Simapolo. We have Honorable Silas Agon. He is the Member of Parliament representing Kumi Municipality in the 11th Parliament. And we have Mr. Patrick Katabazi. Katabazi is the ED and founder, Center for Budget and Tax Policy. But he's also an economist and public policy specialist. We are looking at matters to do with the National Social Security Fund amendment that was passed this week. But again, we need also to look at the strike. The doctors announced last Sunday, and it has been ongoing for the whole of this week, and it is still ongoing. And before we go to that, let's conclude on this matter, gentlemen in the studios. Silas,
Yeah.
you now must admit that it was pressure on you politicians that this bill has again passed, and the reality is that probably it may take time to be implemented.
Yes. And you know, not just the pressure, but it was also necessary to give this money. Whereas Patrick is on the other side of the wall. I stand on this side of the wall. And you see, when we talk about this NSSF thing, for me, I always think about the saver first, not the person who is controlling his savings. Government might be having other interests, because government also knows how it benefits from this whole thing. But for me, my interest is the interest of the saver. Okay. We must be people-centered. Of course, we have to look at the situation now, but also look at the future. That's why me, myself and Patrick have to hit a balance, talking about people's challenges now, but also anticipating what will be there in the future. So for me, I'm concerned about now. And that one is basically because government is not yet strong on managing people's issues that occur on a daily basis and hit them down, like COVID. COVID came, gave us a bang, but we didn't have a strong...
But Honorable Silas,
yes.
COVID is still here, and we are not so sure that that it is going soon. And if it goes, we may not be hit by any other disaster. NSSF can't be a solution to all those issues. Those
that is okay, but you see, for me, what I realize, and first of all, whenever I go down to my people there and I sit with them as they are testing their marijuana and what have you, I listen to them and I get their view. And you see, the people will tell you that if I'm the one saving, give me an opportunity to eat my money when I'm still alive. Why would you be concerned of a man who is 63 or 64 years old and you are not sure that he will live up to that time? And when my money is ready at that time, it will be going to administrators of estate. Why not me, myself, who is saving the money? So I get to understand them because I stayed near them. I listen to their concerns, and I find it really a good reasoning for somebody to eat their thing when they are still alive. Hey, give them an opportunity. We save because we want to consume it. We don't want to save for the burial. That when now it is time to send you to heaven, those who are converging are the ones who eat the bulls bought by your money that you saved via NSSF, and for you are gone. So I don't see it a problem for somebody to taste a little of his thing. If somebody is lucky enough and they survive up to that time, then that will be a good thing. But as of now, people get challenges, and I think that is the reason as to why we save, so that at a point T, when we are really hard up, we have somewhere to run, get something a little, but you are still there. I think what is very difficult is for us to decide to wipe out everything that we have saved. But if you are just getting a portion, I think that is okay. Besides that, I'm aware that people continuously save. So even these fears that the resources will be depleted, I think they are unfounded. Because on a daily basis, somebody is pushing money to NSSF. More and more money is coming. So I think the issue is about the management of this fund. Are we doing it properly? These days we have computerized systems, we have packages, we have what, like Patrick was putting it at the beginning. You should be able to make adequate projections. In terms of maybe 20% per annum, how much are we anticipating to pay out this time around, based on what people contributed, how many savers did what. So those projections are very, very important. So, but for me, my heart always stays near the savers. Forget about government and their systems. Maybe they want to use our money, but my issue is I want to stay near the what? The savers. And we're happy. Yes, near the voter, and that's my benefit. And finally, I should tell you that you see, the voters are lucky here, because if government is shooting like a 12% interest, that's like almost a risk-free, because this money is saved where government investments or what, I don't know, but you are assured of your what? 12% return, and the risk is less. You are not going to use a lot of force looking for work, doing this and that. The money works for you. That is the beauty. But all in all, I'm happy with this bill, and I'm praying that the president quickly assents to it. I'll be one of those persons who will be asking the minister as to whether the regulations are ready. I don't want to wait for the last day of the 60 days. I would love to ask the minister before even the 60 days, how ready are you? Okay. We want to see the regulations on table, so that we even check on the issues that Patrick has been raising here, and see whether the regulations are now handling. And of course, you would not have to have regulations that contradict the principal what? Decisions of the House. Okay. Thank you.
Patrick, as we wind up, you raised salient issues that should be addressed for a country, for the population not to be always within that vulnerability. As a policy analyst, do you see our government coming up with such a system, such an arrangement to put those measures in place that could give the population that social protection at any level?
Social protection is still very thin on the ground in Uganda, and we have less than 17% of people who are covered by some sort of social protection. We have social protection interventions currently going on, the social assistance grant for empowerment, as you know, which is targeting so far about 380
very thin,
yes, older persons in the country. And here you are talking about people who are 80 years and above. Yet we know that all age vulnerability in Uganda's context, really 65 would have been the preferred age minimum. And we want to call upon government to revise the age of eligibility for SAGE, so that more older persons can be accommodated and coverage gets expanded to cover more people. We have social protection for government workers, you know, civil servants. About 350,000 of them are benefiting under the public service pension. But we're also saying, me, the taxpayer, is paying for my own NSSF, but I'm also paying pension 100% for the civil servant who is my employee, me as a taxpayer. And we are saying this is wrong. Civil servants should also be making a small contribution to their own social security, in which case then we are calling for reform of the public pension scheme. Then we have private sector under NSSF. They are still very limited, only 2 million people under NSSF. And I'm happy, glad that Cyrus and his colleagues at Parliament fundamentally have expanded coverage for NSSF. Why? The current law says if you're not 5 employees, then the company is not obliged to register for NSSF and then have the staff paid for. But right now, even if you're 1 employee in a company, your employer, if this law is assented to, will have to make your NSSF benefits available and transferred to NSSF by law. In my view, that is going to expand coverage of social security to many people. There have been so many people who have been manipulating records to make sure they are always under the 5 employees so that they cannot pay NSS on behalf of their members. So I want to call upon all the employers, media houses particularly, who have journalists, and most of the journalists are not covered by informal security, and traders, those who have house girls, whatever. This is a great opportunity to making a contribution to somebody's future well-being.
Drivers.
You know, so this is a great opportunity, and we need to embrace it. So the other thing that social protection that we think government possibly needs now to look at, the issue of a national social protection scheme for people in the informal sector. What has government done? I know from the Uganda Retirement Benefits Authority, the authority has licensed 2 schemes. There's Mazima pension scheme and the Kasita one, where traders make some contributions for their own social protection. We think some of these, there should be deliberate policy to scale them up so that people will learn the culture of keeping something small to benefit them for years to come. And of course, you know, government has been trying to, I would still credit government for trying to bring the national health insurance bill, except that it has also taken so long in abeyance at the president's office. He has some reservation on a clause. I think it is possibly one of them from what I have heard. Let that come out, let it come to Parliament, let them debate it, and then we at least know that just like other civilized countries, we have a national scheme that guarantees somebody's health at the primary level. So the other thing that I also wanted to say that is also very critical that Parliament, I think, did was to ensure that this particular bill has a clause for the supervision under the Ministry of Gender, as opposed to the one that they wanted under Ministry of Finance. And I think that's a very great thing. Because, and then putting 4 members representing workers, 2 members representing employers
on the board,
and then of course other government representatives. I think for me that is fundamental. Getting the fund to be managed, supervised by players who are concerned with workers, with the people, in my view is a very great step. And I would urge the president, of course, despite my reservations about the other one,
to sign it,
to give it a nod, and then we get it out of the way.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, it is the dialogue. My name is Mapolo, and we are looking at the NSSF amendment bill that was passed. Hopefully, it will be assented to, and workers, no savers actually, savers with the fund.
Cyrus gets happy, and
Yes,
we'll be happy.
That's accountability.
And his future will also be secured.
Will be bright.
Well, viewers, we must now turn to a very contentious issue of doctors striking. And like I said in the beginning, for the whole of this week, only emergencies and those procedures that do not require specialized attention in public hospitals have been only been managed this time. Doctors are on strike, and the latest I have as an update is that, well, engagements have been done, We know that this week the leadership of Uganda Medical Association met with the president, the head of state, and they insist in their latest statement, they insist, one, that they have not wavered from the following demands. One, approval of a supplementary budget to boost drug and non-drug medical equipment and supplies, including personal protective equipment for health workers across the country. That's one of their demands. Two, employment of all doctors and recruitment of all vacant jobs within the health system. Three, approval of a supplementary budget with immediate effect for salary enhancement of medical doctors at all levels, including medical interns, as per the presidential directive. Four, prioritization of welfare improvement for doctors outside of salary, such as medical insurance, tax-free vehicles, tax-neutral building materials, as pledged in 2017. 5. Compensation of all families of health workers who have succumbed to COVID-19 in line of duty, as per the Workmen's Compensation Act 2000, with immediate effect. And they conclude, while we appreciate the openness of the government and their extended hand of support and commitment to fulfilling past pledges and current demands, the same pledges remain written and signed but not fulfilled since 2017. Therefore, we shall continue with the industrial action as is until we have tangible results from the government. That is the latest from Uganda Medical Association. They seem not to have shifted from their earlier position. And Honorable, you have people in Kumi and everywhere suffering. Every minute, every second that ticks, lives are at risk.
First of all, the doctors who are striking are my voters. Yes. I do not represent only those who work in Kumi. I also represent those throughout the country. It is our role to represent our people. And I think what is very, very important is for us to look deeper into the merits of their cry. That's very, very important. And when you talk of approving a supplementary to make sure that you have the PPEs, you have all the medical supplies that are needed, that goes down to the issues of our people. Because if you didn't do this, you will realize that most of them are going to die. Who will vote for us in 2026? So I think they have genuine concerns. Having doctors employed in the government, I think that would be a good thing, because it will stabilize our systems. It also eliminates that kind of segregation in terms of there are people who are able to go to private health facilities, but others will not be able to. And you know, if you go to a public health facility, you are likely to see the disparity, the difference between the public and the private. The supplies are here, supplies are not there. So the doctors have a genuine concern. You speak to issues of compensation of those who have been affected during work.
Yeah, they who died actually.
Yes, there are people who have lost lives. A living example is the one, you see, when we lost Dr. Lukuya. Over
the Ebola
which it was Ebola. That was the eye-opener for me. I got to realize that, kumbe medical personnel
are also at a high risk.
At a high risk, and they really sacrifice themselves at every given point. So these doctors that we are talking about are human beings, and these are our people. And I have a voice to represent them. They have genuine concerns. If we are having issues, promised, pledged, promises made in 2017, and this is 2021. That's well over 4 years, and nothing has been implemented. Then they have a genuine call for government to act, even if it was me. And you see, in our language, there is what they say that a promise is what? A debt. You do not run away from what you have promised. If you break your promise, then you are a liar, which is not okay. So I start with the doctors. The doctors mean everything to us. I can tell you we can have all the money here, all the best cars, You can put all the V8s together for yourself, but if you are not okay health-wise, then you are gone. It is all meaningless.
Okay.
Yes, so for me, I think I want to agree with the doctors, but the issue is, how does government implement the promises? It is very possible to stagger this. You can say, in this year, we are going to do this through a supplementary. But make sure you implement. Don't promise what you don't do. That is where the problem is. So always promise something and fulfill it. Do it. I have seen people suffer with the loans. And then they say, let us sit and then we agree on a schedule. We stagger your payments. We can give you 6 months.
Repayment schedule.
Yes. So that this month you pay this until you finish. That is the kind of thing that I thought should be on table now. How do we do it? Yes, we may not be able to get all the demands at a go. We are all aware that the government right now is borrowing left and right. It's not easy to run the state, by the way. I also stand with the government. For instance, I need to stand with the president at the same time. You need to manage the country. The country needs resources. You may not be able to do everything at a go, but we must act amicably. We must be people of maturity. We discuss things with the substance. We agree that for now, let us start with this and lay priorities.
Honorable, exactly on the issue of priorities. I have interacted with some of the leadership of medical association in this week.
Yes.
And they are citing recent examples. You pass in parliament supplementary budgets. Actually you acquire loans. You procure loans. But again, prioritization, the areas you prioritize, they say that the health sector has really been sidelined in the whole matter. For instance, if you've read papers this week, one issue they point out is a supplementary that was procured to meet vehicles for ministers and retired government officials. I think you've seen that. But again, these people have their colleagues who died in the line of duty during the COVID fight. Their families have not been compensated. Don't you see a problem with prioritizing
it is there.
Issues there?
The problem is life, and it is a danger, it is a crisis, and as a country, that is where we need to refocus ourselves. I'm surprised that the government can say that we are suppressing the budgets, we are making suppressions. We are going to cut over 40% from nearly every institutional sector in order to save money for real priorities. But again, we come back through a supplementary and contradict the earlier positions. You can imagine if we go to the level of even cutting 40% of money for parliament, in the name of making sure that we try to do the real priorities which are urgent for the country. Then we come back in a supplementary. And we are talking of buying cars which are worth 550 million per each at a time when the country and the economy is bleeding. But when it is a member of parliament getting 200 million for an old car, it's like a man has beaten a dog or eaten a dog meat. That is terrible. So for me, the issue is, really, I want to agree with you that our priorities sometimes are not going to the right direction. We are making things in a very funny way. What we ought to be doing now, we put it to the future. What we ought to have done in the future, we bring it closer. Then you get muddled up in thinking, what is happening in the country? So I think that's where the issue is. Yes, it is also true that maybe to a certain extent, health has been sidelined. But I also want to believe a lot of money has been pumped into this. Parliament has been there. Money has been passed to health. But the question is, when we also move this money to health, how is it utilized? Internally there. Because as a parliament, we may say that let's give health money. But health as a health, how does it use the money? So it is the duty of parliament again to up its role on oversight. Hey, as the watchdog, I gave you money. What did you do with the money? We can even give these people billions of money. Unless for this money, you can see If you are talking about salaries, for instance, that is something which is so direct. If it's implemented, you'll find that the money has gone to people's accounts. My worry is about to manage that we pass for supplies, for instance, medicines, equipment, and there's one thing which is bad in the health sector that I should let the people know today. We might be still relying on a staffing structure of around 1954, at the time when Owen Falls maybe was established. We are still, yes, when the population was maybe below 10 million people, we are still relying on that structure. The population has exploded, the doctors are very few, the machines are very few. Now,
but the graduates are very many.
The graduates are very many, they are not all employed, people are scattered, there is no capacity building, continuous capacity building for the medical personnel. So we are in a quagmire, in a crisis.
Wow.
Yeah, so our priorities need to be refocused to the benefit of the health sector, and I want to agree with the doctors. Government must listen, because even you who is taking charge of making decisions as to pay or not, once you fall sick, you may not be able to treat yourself.
Good.
The doctor
That is where we, Patrick, you'll start from. I thought, personally, that the COVID-19 pandemic had taught us lessons. That we may not be able to access health care outside the country. We need to equip our facilities with the best we can. And now the doctors, from what doctors are saying, I think it is contrary to what I thought in the beginning, what I thought had been done during the COVID pandemic. The doctors are talking about low staff numbers in hospitals, PPEs are not available. That's what one thing they're talking about, personal protection equipment. I don't know, Patrick, if you share that view. Did we learn anything from the COVID-19 pandemic, from what the doctor is saying right now?
The answer is no. The answer is that we've learned nothing and forgotten everything. And I remember when COVID had just come, there were quite a number of TV programs, news conferences, where people were promising that this was going to be an opportunity to suspend expenditure on some items, in any case we're in a lockdown, and then be able to build a very robust and resilient healthcare system. We're here to see one almost 2 years down the road. And I think for me that is very disappointing. Doctors are not my voters. I'm not a politician. Even the people who are listening us, you are not my voters. So what I'll say will be a reflection of my independent thinking about the subject. Strikes has become a norm in our human resource management in this country. And I think also at some point members of parliament demonstrate when they want money for cars, when they want increment in salaries, they do some little bit of their strike inside there, threatening this and the other, and they get what they want. And
for us, usually we just pray, we don't strike.
And it seems to be the virus it seems to be the new coronavirus in our human resource management of the country. That for you to get anything that you deserve, forget what you want. In order to get even the little that you deserve, you must demonstrate. You must strike. You must cause tension so that people listen to you. And that speaks to either the absence or inefficient legal and public policy framework that looks at incentivizing remuneration and rewarding of our civil service cadres. And I want to say that, for example, in the context of COVID-19, if you want to visit the big person's office, they require you to be vaccinated, they require you to put on a mask, they require you to test for COVID. If you want to go to see the president, that's a standard requirement. But if you are a doctor, can you ever have that requirement? Because your role is in any case to treat, to touch, to care.
The person
somebody
you know that
So meaning that in terms of within the social protection context, in terms of the work that people do, our health workers are the most vulnerable. So when you are talking about remuneration and incentives, the packages should be commensurate with their level of risk and vulnerability while delivering the service to each and every person. And I think for me, Honorable, the debate should start just there. I cannot imagine anybody who thinks that me as a lawyer or as an economist or as an accountant, I have the same level of vulnerability
as a doctor
and risk at my workplace like a doctor. So I must not be among those people who say that I deserve more than them in terms of remuneration.
And I wanted to give a little information on that. You see, we have a challenge. Whereas some actors can be substituted in the course of doing their work, there are duties where you cannot be substituted. A doctor cannot be substituted. That now, yes, we understand you are tired, you get out, let another person come and take over from you. Because you can see that 24 hours, people are in emergency situation, but you have a single doctor attending to all of them. The doctor has not eaten, he has not taken water, he doesn't have money for fees, but you want him to continuously be there. So because of that, I buy into your idea. We may not be able to say that we are equivalent. Yes, we may say all of us are human beings, we have a blood, what, but at a certain level we must be able to agree that we differ. This one is unique. So I agree with you 100%.
So arising out of that, we can say we shall have standard salaries by different cadres and we classify them.
Yes.
But then we say we shall give an additional package to this category of staff because of the risk that is attached to their employment, the occupational risk and the vulnerability that comes with it. So income really is a subject, the whole concept of social protection.
Yes.
Because I had a doctor who was saying that I'm a doctor in a health service where I get salary, which salary cannot afford me to pay for the medical bills in the same facility.
Really?
Where I'm a doctor. And to me that's appalling. So, but beyond the sentiments, can we agree as a country to have a better package for our health workers, but then also condition them
to deliver, and that once you are a health service provider paid for by the public, you are not allowed to work in a private
facility, health facility.
Yes. Because some of the doctors of the health workers that attend to us, they are sometimes competing. They are not looking at the time because they are going to be on call in a private. So as a compromise, I think the country should look at a very good package for our health workers, but then also embed in that policy a requirement that if you are a government doctor, you possibly do not need to go and work in another private, unless you are authorized for one reason or the other. But for the purpose of making money, you be facilitated, be compensated very well, be remunerated well. And as I conclude, if medical workers were promised a package, were promised money, let that be delivered. A promise
is a debt.
Is a debt. Let that be given. We shouldn't even be debating it. And I want to associate myself with them, and I want to call upon authorities to ensure that this crisis is resolved once and for all. Because, and unfortunately for us, the people who are supposed to resolve this, for them they will fly, they go to Entebbe airport and go and get medical services abroad, unfortunately. So they may not feel much pinch as myself and you listening to me regarding this subject matter. And it is high time we, the population, also stood up and says, hey, no, this should not work. The same budget that is not having money for medical workers has money for treatment abroad. What a contradiction. And it is our members of parliament, I think, who are also failing us in this one. Because their primary responsibility is to scrutinize and approve the budget. They are not doing their work very well. They're also coming here to lament with us. We should actually now start demonstrating against them as well. And Honorable Cyrus, you take this message.
I will take it.
That you are neglecting the role of budgeting and appropriation, and you are passing things as is. Priorities are coming upside down. You have money for cars. You have given a member of parliament 200 million for the same has been appointed. The minister is going to get a car of 600 million. That's 800. You might think these are totally different, but it could inform policy on how we should treat expenses relating to transport of public officials. And then we know, if possibly, a member of parliament, you are bought for your car and it's a government car, and if you become a minister, well and good, and that's it. So that at the end of the day, we have money that can be committed to supporting our people in service delivery, particularly in the health sector, which I mentioned is one of the cost centers in our population, and that once the costs that we spend on medical are curtailed, somebody has enough disposable income to do many other things, including investment.
All right, thank you so much, Patrick. And viewers, we have been joined by Dr. Mirembe Joel. Dr. Mirembe Joel is the Secretary for Uganda Medical Association, in charge of Central Region. And welcome to the program. We have moved, and I will take you straight to my question. But you first say hi to our viewers before we go.
Yeah, good morning, viewers of Salt Media, Salt TV, and Salt Radio listeners. My name is Dr. Mirembe Joel. I'm a leader at Uganda Medical Association as secretary, like he has introduced me. I'm also a former leader and actually the founding president of the Federation for Ugandan Medical Interns, the association that leads the people who have finished university officially, but by law they are supposed to work with government for the first year. So I just wanted to clear the air that those are not students. These people have finished, they have their transcript, they have their certificates from the university, they have their degrees, but the law of Uganda mandates, and that this is a common practice in other countries, mandates as long as you're going to be a doctor, you're supposed to first work in a government-approved hospital for a year.
Okay.
And the entire country, the entire world, they are paid.
It is true that they're also on strike. Actually, you came later. They had announced their strike. I think two weeks ago.
Yes, because like when we started forming
interns.
Yes, when we started forming, we wanted a platform, a legal voice for these people, because their welfare was very bad. And to speak the reality, these people do the highest amount of work, spend the highest amount of hours in hospital. These are the core frontline staff of regional referrals of this country, of some selected private hospitals like Rubaga here, like Mengo, and several others as government approves them. But look, when you cut down the money they were taking home, it could not sustain them even for 2 weeks.
How much?
So that was 700.
An intern?
Yes, but this is someone who is not allowed to do any other thing except being at hospital. Even when you're at home, I was an intern at Mlago. You are at home, you have gone in your car, small room, they call you. You come, you are the first there, you see the patient, then later you can call the consultant. You get? So these people have children. These people, you know, for us, we study for a very long period of time. So by the time people finish, people have children, people have families. But then there is this natural expectation that the community of Uganda or Africa in particular has about a doctor. When you become a doctor, all villagers, everyone is calling in. Your parents, for example, some of us who are children who from very humble backgrounds, the entire family almost will become the father. If you are a woman, you become the mother. So these are very high expectations. But look, in 2019, we did the same thing. We wrote a petition, we took to Parliament. They promised salary increment. It didn't come. 2020, it did not come. So they were going to strike. but it was COVID time. So the government decided to promise an increment in the budgeting. When the budget came, the money was not included. So they kept quiet. They were told, it's going to be included, you don't worry. They kept quiet. July came, nothing. So they decided to withdraw the work, and it is really a big burden. Now, the common person, of course, suffers one way or the other, but still, these guys, these doctors, they didn't have what to use when they're working. So they went on strike for 2 reasons. Their unfulfilled promise, 2, the fact that the majority, over 75% of the health workers who have got COVID are intern doctors and intern
they are
nurses.
exposed
Because for them, they are
risks.
exposed on daily. They are the one, when you come, remember, when a patient comes, it's not a labeled COVID patient, malaria patient. So you first interact with them. But these people are interacting with these patients without gloves, without protective masks, and many other things. So that's why they decided to
Okay. Dr. Murembe, we are running out of time. I'm sorry.
Yes.
We had talked about, we had raised an issue of whether COVID-19 pandemic somehow helped our country to upgrade its facilities, its healthcare system, and we had doubts around that. You can give us, in just a few statements, a picture of how, because you're talking about PPEs in hospitals, you're talking about lack of inadequate facilities in health centers. Is it real? Is it true that probably COVID-19 pandemic did not bring as much we expected?
In the ideal setting, COVID-19 was an opportunity to make the healthcare sector a priority in budgeting, in action, in everything. The human resource for health, improvement and upgrade, infrastructure like buildings, beds, and that was told the common person. We were also told that the staff of this sector. Literally, for example, we were told that every regional referral is going to get an ICU facility. I can confirm authoritatively that not even more than 5 regional referrals have ICU.
Are they how many are they regional referrals?
There are 16 and yes. But I can confirm not more than 5
have ICUs.
Yes, for example, I work in Mbara Regional Referral Hospital, COVID treatment unit. There is no ICU. When a patient needs ICU, we refer them to Kampala.
Really?
But then a budget was passed to procure ICU equipment for these hospitals. And some ministers, these are honorable members, trusted by a lot of people to represent them. But it is sad, they come and misrepresent them. Someone is saying, all regional referrals have ICUs. No. If they are there, maybe those equipment are somewhere stored. But what is the need of them being stored? That's if anywhere they are there.
Let's talk.
So the health sector was meant to benefit most from the pandemic. But I assure you, when you go on ground and do a check, it has not benefited most. And that is one of the reasons why Uganda Medical Association decided to go on a strike to flag an alarm. You get? Because in June, during the pandemic actually, doctors in their annual General Assembly voted to go on strike. After the General Assembly voting that, but then the National Executive Committee sat and said, the branches sat and said, our people are going to die. So they said, let us recall
the
strike. And that was breaking the General Assembly's resolution is the highest resolution, but it was recalled. And then we wrote telling government 3 months from now we are going to go on strike.
Okay.
But
that has not been done.
It only listened when actually we recalled part of the services, and I must maintain that we recalled part of the services. But if government doesn't respond, people are likely actually to recall all services. Because now, where we have, for example, 10 doctors, at least 3 are there to manage critical patients and emergencies.
One more highlight, one more clarification on facilities in hospitals. You've talked about ICUs. Okay, those are high and expensive equipment, I hope. What about these low-cost equipment in hospitals? Did we actually get something from COVID-19 at that level?
I will start by saying that, for example, COVID was a new disease that not even any doctor knew about it. So everyone was literally learning the disease based on the research from World Health Organization and the developed countries, because for us we are at the receiving end. Intern doctors, the one I've told you, have just finished school. They go to work and find a new disease that they didn't learn about in medical school. But I assure you, training them about COVID management happened this year when the pandemic is ending. Really? Yes. So now, that's why I'm telling you the highest numbers of people who got infected with COVID were intern doctors. These are guys where gloves are available for 2 weeks, the next 2 weeks they're not available. Gloves? Yeah, I'm speaking the reality. Then the patient comes, you tell them, guys, even after we've gone through the COVID-19 pandemic, we don't have gloves in health facilities. Whenever a patient comes, you write for them a list, they go to the nearby pharmacy. Of recent, there are private pharmacies in government hospitals, some of the government hospitals, they buy those things, but that is not actually doing the patient writing for them and everything. You are likely to get the disease if anyway the patient has got the disease. So we have not benefited, because if we benefited, at least we would have had medical doctors recruited at every health center which has not been done also. We have now had constituencies without health center force. We have had an upgrade to make sure that health center 3, one health center 3 at least, is upgraded to become health center 4 and deploy doctors there. National Development Plan has a resolution of making sure that every health center 3 at least has one doctor. You get? They are not there. But they are not there. Even during the pandemic, doctor, these cases are in the communities. Doctor, the expert knowledge, and the expert knowledge according to the hierarchy of the health care, the clinical providers of services. This is the doctor. So we need someone on ground to manage. Doctor, time is really flying, and in just one statement, looks like for you to insist that we need a concrete commitment right now, you seem to see that money is there, funds are available, probably they are not being channeled to your demands. Is it true? You see, do you see money there, and probably government is not? Mr. Poro, in 2017, doctors came to an agreement with government to implement key things, and they were told that they will be implemented in the next financial year because there is no money. That year we saw a lot of luxurious expenditures. Luxurious? Yes. Then we saw the same in COVID. The most surprising thing, whenever a budget was passed, borrowed money for example, was passed for COVID, the biggest percentage didn't ever go to health care, went to security. Yet this war, if it is a war in our COVID, needed soldiers who are health workers, not those with the guns, not those with the expert in investigations of crime, but those with knowledge of handling the pandemic. So the same thing government is saying actually. For example, the president told the National Executive Committee that, you see, now we don't have money. But then we saw a supplementary budget full of luxurious expenditures. For example, like you said, someone who has over 3 cars, high profile cars, is going to be bought a car which is 600 million plus. You get? So I get it. The money is there. What is missing is that priorities. Doctor, I think we get it. Yes. We only have for 4 minutes. I don't know how we can do that. Patrick, you have to wind up. Listening to Dr. Mirembe, what do you pick as we wind up? Yes, but he has also done us a disservice. He has come late. So we have not been able to, I hope that's not the same mentality doctors have at their facilities. Because we are talking about things of national importance, and this is a very critical subject. I don't want to dispute what he has said, because I think he seems to have practical experience on what is going on. All I can reiterate is that
from the budgeting perspective is that we have our priorities upside down, and we have Parliament neglecting its duty to commit government on its assurances. I'm sure if assurances of this nature would be first considered in the budget stage, I'm sure we're not to be having the crisis that comes out. Because you find people have evidence or promises that have been made, not promises verbally, some of them could be even in writing, but then they don't get transmitted through the budgeting system. What happens in between? Who is wrong? And why is Parliament not troubleshooting some of these? Or are they just passing as a clearinghouse? Could it be because of the timelines that are tagged where things must be passed in a particular time? It is something, there's a gap there that we need to correct. And I also want to call upon leaders, I have already said so, of this country, to look into the issues that are being talked about or being said by our health workers with the hope of getting a lasting solution, because they can't keep in the strike all the time. People are dying. And many other people are not going to go to the hospital. They will try many other methods, some of them that could be risky to their lives. So it is something that is very important. It is something that is not to be taken so lightly. They should do something about it.
Okay. Honorable Silas, it now goes back to you. Parliament. You are the ones who pass these supplementary budgets. You do all the appropriation. You can now admit you failed us in that line.
I may not say we have failed you, but to a certain extent, there's a weakness recorded. That one I can admit, because it is the duty of Parliament to exercise oversight over all the government institutions, because it is constitutional.
Actually, you do appropriation as well as oversight.
Oversight. So it is the mandate of Parliament, and I think we need to up our game. That one I must accept. We must be able to up our game and ask hard questions. We gave you money. This money was for health sector. How much did you put towards acquisition of PPEs? How much did you put towards making sure that ambulances are running? If we gave you money for ICUs,
there was a task force. There was a COVID task force.
Yes.
In Parliament, I remember, headed by Honorable Katuntu and other legislators in Parliament.
Yes.
A report was tabled. Don't you think it is time to follow up on that? They
authored a report, and I want to believe Parliament adopted these resolutions. The issue is, how far have they been implemented? It comes back to us again, because we need to ask hard questions. We passed these resolutions. Did you implement? How far have you gone? What went wrong? So I can tell you that speaks to the issue of independence of Parliament. So if you don't have a strong Parliament that is able to stand out and speak independently, the people will suffer directly, and the doctors equally will suffer.
Thank you so much.
We need that independence.
Thank you so much, Honorable. Your final comment, and we move.
My final comment is that the doctors need to be supported to support us, and we must be able to listen to them. If we made a promise, we are the ones who made the promise. Government, we ask, where are you? If you are there, pay up. Let the doctors enjoy.
Katavaz, Mr. Patrick, just one comment.
No, and I think we need to have a holistic approach to social protection in Uganda, because the issue of workers, the issue of salary is a social protection intervention. And once we do not have a comprehensive system that looks at how people access income, their natural vulnerabilities, then we will have missed the opportunity. Like I've already said, in the population of workers, it is the health sector who have the most risky workplace, and therefore they become the most vulnerable workers in the working category, and to that extent they must get a commensurate package that is over and above what an ordinary worker should get, to be able to help them mitigate the risks and vulnerabilities that are associated with their employment.
In just one statement, you said if at all government fails to respond, you even recall those doctors that are still on the ground. Just one statement.
Like I say, I'm a voice of the many doctors. So I usually put across concerns or messages from them. We have told government that we have left a skeleton staff to make sure that no one actually dies because of our absence. But this is the flag we are raising. The time for action is now. So I don't know where the government wants the doctors to escalate to that level. But most importantly, like the honorable member has said, the Parliament of Uganda has got to wake up and know that people voted them not to serve any other person but them.
Okay, Doctor, our time is up.
Are the ones who seek care from us. So
Doctor,
let them join us. We finish this and go back to work for us. We want to.
All right, that's it from us here at the Dialogue. I must thank my guests. Honorable Cyrus Algon, Member of Parliament for Kumi Municipality. Thank you so much for turning up.
You're welcome.
And Patrick Katabazi, the ED and founder, Center for Budget and Tax Policy. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much, Dr. Mirembe Joel, for turning up. I must say, it was a good interaction, and we thank you, viewers, for your time. You can follow us on Facebook and YouTube. These programs will be there. So TV Uganda, you'll find it there. I must say, good afternoon and a good weekend.